Hey everyone, and thank you as always for joining us on the Above Board podcast. And we have a special treat because the last several weeks it's only been me, and I think the listeners, Rich, have been getting bored with me. And so we have got TheRichB hanging with us today. What's up, bud?
How are you? Well, if I'm a treat, then does that make you a snack?
It does, I guess.
You know what that means, right?
Let's
That's
roll
what the
with
kids.
it.
That's what the kids say these
Yeah,
days.
every podcast you hit me with things either generationally that are so far beyond my age,
Right.
or then too young now. You're telling me what the kids are saying. My kids aren't saying this yet.
Well, not. I hope not. But a snack is like a hottie. You know what a hottie is, right? Like somebody.
Of course.
Somebody who back in my day we would say is fine, like that. Foxy. Okay. Did you guys ever say foxy? Like, oh, she's a fox or he's a fox. Did you use that term?
No, that was before me.
Yeah,
but it does remind me of Austin Powers. I'm Foxy Cleopatra, and I'm a whole lot of woman. That's what I think of Beyonce's role.
Oh, I hate Beyonce. Yeah, I shouldn't say that out loud. But are you allowed to not like? I don't like certain celebrities. I can name them all. I have actually, which I can tell I'm getting older because my list of people that I don't like is way longer than my list of people that I like. And when I was younger, it was like I love this person, I love this person, but like I just can't stand hardly any celebrities at all, especially musicians. I don't like anybody anymore.
They say you're never supposed to meet your favorite celebrity.
I would
because
never
that always
want to meet
ruins.
Beyonce. Actually, I met Mick Jagger when I was 20. And he was super nice. And I said the dumbest thing I've ever said because I was so nervous. And I think I've said this on a podcast. And I was in a club in New York City called Limelight. And I was in the VIP lounge. That's a long story. And it was 1989. And he was doing his solo thing with a guitarist named, I think it was Joe Satriani, if I remember correctly. And he was taking a break from the Stones, and my friend said, "Don't look behind you," but Mick Jagger's walking out. And when they walk out, like the lounge was very small, and he was right in front of me, and his bodyguard stopped because there was a crowd. So literally Mick Jagger, who I've wanted to meet my entire life, is standing right in front of me, and he turns and makes direct eye contact with me. And I wanted to tell him how much his music's meant to me, because at the time I was in a band and I was a singer and all this kind of stuff. And I said, and I quote, "You have written really great song music." I looked at him and said, "You have written really great song music, not songs, not you've written great songs, not like incredible." And he looked at me like I had just crawled out of like a septic tank. And he goes, "Oh, well, thank you," like that, and then just walked away. And that was it. And then I stole his champagne glass, which I still have up in my cabinet wrapped in bubble wrap, which I could show to you. It's Mick Jagger champagne glass with his lip marks on it and his fingerprints, because I'm that much of a stalker. From 1989, I still have it.
I feel like everyone listening to this has some story. It might not be like Mick Jagger status, but like meeting a celebrity or meeting somebody that they're a little starstruck by that they just can't find the words.
It's never going to happen again. Yeah, I'm never going to meet him again, and I'm never going to be able to have like a normal conversation and say, like, I was 20 and I was really nervous, and I just wanted to say like, wow, and I could just remember my thoughts racing and my heart was pounding in my chest. And you're looking at this person who's like iconic. I mean, this is an iconic human being in our world that transcends generations. And I just wanted to say something nice, cool, and memorable. And I know that hopefully he was so drunk he doesn't remember. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I've always had, because we always think more of ourselves. Like, I always picture him like 30 years later, 40 years later, he's like, "Remember that time I was in Limelight and that guy with the long curly hair goes, 'You've written really great song. Keith, you remember when I told you about that wanker?'" That's like what I picture. It like he remembers it. Like that's how.
Maybe that's what it like. It was so not memorable because of what you said, but it like he remembers it because it was just so surprisingly and shockingly stupid. Bad. What you said.
Can we just move on to the podcast? Because I'm totally.
Let's do it. We're 5 minutes in.
I'm so anxious.
And let's do it. We're 5 minutes in. It's a short podcast today. You're anxious. I'm unhappy. And the irony in that is that today's podcast is about building happiness habits. So take it away.
So happiness habit number 1, don't make a jerk of yourself when you're talking to Mick Jagger. But by the way, my next dog is going to be named Jagger, just so that you know that. I'm
I see
announcing
that for you.
officially.
I see that.
I'm announcing that officially on here. It's either going to be Jagger or Nero.
Now, was Rocky named after?
Yes.
Was it the Rocky movies?
Yes,
Got
I
it.
always,
okay.
since
And
I
then
was
Vader, of course.
Yeah, no,
we
like
know.
you lovingly and beautifully, I still have it. It's hanging in my office. When my little poem that I wrote about my dog upon the floor when my doggy died, and you printed it and framed it, and I still have it. From the time I was a little kid, I used to pretend that I had a German Shepherd named Rocky sleeping next to my bed. That's what I used to always pretend, because I had a lonely and sad childhood. So I had an imaginary dog because I couldn't have a real dog. And speaking of happiness habits,
I couldn't think of anything unhappier than talking about our dogs passing away. So yeah, let's shift.
Well,
the hard
no,
right.
but
to-
it is a happiness habit, because I realize that having not grown up with a pet, happiness habit number one is sometimes the animals in our lives, the pets in our lives. I know there's going to be people that like cats on this, and I apologize. I can't include cats in this, but I mean, I guess if you like cats, that's fine. But I just can't.
alienating all of our listeners.
I'm sorry.
Beyonce,
If you like
Beyonce, cats.
I don't care about Beyonce at all. But if you do, I actually, funny enough, I did have a cat for many years who died. I had him for 10 years, and his name was Mick Jagger, or Mick. And I loved Mick Jagger, and he was a great cat. So I retract the statement. I retract it. Okay. But one of the things that has been studied is animals, especially when we're petting them and interacting with them. There have been multiple studies that have shown that animals and that interaction lowers blood pressure. It helps us breathe differently. They've done studies where people breathe a little bit slower when they're interacting, petting, not obviously like running outside chasing your dog who's like fighting with a bear or something, but just, interacting with your dog or petting them brings down blood pressure. And that the way that they look at us creates an oxytocin in their brain, or chemicals in their brain, but also in ours. If you've ever looked in your dog's eyes, you sometimes feel a sense of peace. So that being said, the other thing is, especially with dogs, because I haven't seen a lot of people walking their cats. If I do, I'll make fun of you and probably do a video. But when you walk your dog, it brings you out into nature. It brings you out into sunshine. You're getting fresh air. You're getting sun, which vitamin D, which increases your immunity. So one happiness habit is that if you do have a pet, don't ignore them. They're probably, unless they're a Chihuahua, are probably the only animal that completely loves you for. No, I've already alienated like a third group of people. Are probably their unconditional love for us. It's crazy that they're there and they look at you like you're everything to them. I saw a T-shirt one time that said, "Be the person your dog thinks you are," and I was like, wow, that's deep. Like, my dog Vader thinks I'm amazing. Everything I do is amazing. He loves me. He wants to sit with me. He wants to hang out with me. So that's happiness.
Their love is unconditional.
Very
much.
much.
That's the beauty of it. No matter what in a bad mood you are, if you've had a bad day, they're still excited and happy to see you. And a lot of times, I know I come home sometimes with just like, if I'm not having a good day, I bring bad energy into the household. We were in the car yesterday, and Jackie's like, "What's the deal with the heaviness of your energy? Like it's palatable. Everybody feels it." I'm like, "I just had a bad day, And
are you
so,
nice when she says things like that? Because I get
No.
like, I'm not okay. Because I just didn't believe that was your reaction. I'm sorry. Like, I don't believe that Jackie said, "What's with the heaviness?" And you're like, "I just had a bad day today." Like, I picture you going, "Why? What? I can't have a bad day." Like, I just picture you not being cool. I'm sorry, because I don't mean to be mean, but that's how I would be. Because if Dawn said that to me, I'd be like, "What? And you're in a great mood all the time?" Like, I just feel like I don't think I'd handle that.
But here's the challenge. So we're working on, in our relationship, not being like
You're working on not being a jerk.
We just like bust each other's chops a lot, right? And so and that could be sarcasm, and it is, but and in a healthy place, when we're both in good moods and like life's good, it's fine. We can roll with the punches. But when we're in a bad place, it's not a good time to do that. But I have given, like, I think one of the things I've done recently is, like, Jack and I've talked about this, and I'm like, you have like full unilateral authority to call me out when I'm like when I'm bringing the mood down. Like, I need you to, because like when we're in a healthy place, we're talking about it, she'll be like, "Yeah, you remember last week? Like, we were all having a good time, everyone was good, and then you came in super upset about something with work, and then like you brought that stress into the room. Try not to do that. Like, okay.
See that thing you just did? Don't do that. So wait.
Right.
Wait. Hold on. Pause. So that's a happiness habit. So a happiness habit is being aware of your energy and being cognizant and present. And let's just use the stereotypical coming home from work moment or whatever. And you pull your car into the driveway or into the garage, or for you, your 2-mile long driveway through your cathedral area up to your mansion.
In my head.
In your head.
In my brain,
No, but
yes.
you use that time and maybe set a timer of 2 minutes where you purposely and with intention say, I'm leaving all the negativity and all the anger where it belongs, which is outside, and I'm going to walk in with a different mindset. I'm going to embrace my family. I'm going to be happy. I need a reset. And just say to yourself, I love my family. I love my home. I'm grateful for this day. I'm grateful that I get to, walk into a house and we have food and we have air conditioning and we have windows and doors, and I'm just, going to take a deep breath and walk in with that energy. And I mean, look, man, nobody can relate to that more than me. My entire life has been working jobs that I would either A, see people die as a trauma nurse. So talk about coming home in a bad mood. B, seeing children in horrible situations and or pass away. When I was a pediatric ICU nurse, that's the worst. Or even now in my job, which I absolutely love, but I travel for a living. I'm sure y'all watch enough social media to see how people act on airplanes and airports, and between delays and travel and being cramped in a seat and sitting next to someone that has bad breath. On the other, like my last flight that I was just on coming from Sacramento, I don't know who you were sitting back there between row 19 and 22, but please take Gas X on your next flight. People were literally, I was putting my shirt over my nose. They had such bad gas. So then you come home from that experience and, I get it. But your energy, people do feed off your energy. Just like we talked about, like with your dog, you feed off that energy in a positive way. When you come home grumpy and miserable or upset, you got to come in a different way. I had a friend that was a police officer who they see a lot of horrible things, and he would text his wife, his wife was amazing. She was a nurse. And, sometimes if she was home, she'd be like, hey, when are you going to be, because he had a shift. So when are you going to be home? And he would say X amount of minutes. And then he would say a number. He'd say, but I need 6 or I need 3. And it wasn't minutes. It was how many times he had to drive around the block. And sometimes he said I would scream, sometimes I would cry, sometimes I would pray, but it was the amount of times I had to drive around the block before I could be a human being, before I would walk into my house. And he said, because I just had to deal with a guy who, domestic violence, or seeing a child hurt, or somebody pass away in a car accident, or a drunk driving situation, or I got into a fight or whatever. So he would tell his wife 3. And that would let her know he needs 3 drives around the block. Or sometimes he'd say 1. And so that would also tell her what his mood was. Because if he said 6 or 7, then she knew it was a tough day for him. So then she would adjust her energy. Hey, Daddy had a tough day today. So when he comes in, let's all hug him. And they would all wait at the door. And when he walked in, his 2 kids, he had a little boy and a little girl, same ages as yours are right now when I knew him. And they would hug him, and the wife would hug him. And they would just hold him and just hold him. And he'd say everything would drift away. And he said he started doing that because one time he came in, he was just horrible. And his wife literally said, go, get back in your police car and go drive around the block till you know how to act like a human being. And that started to become a habit.
Maybe one of the other happiness tips could be perspective, because that perspective is great. I mean, I sit here and I'm like, I had a bad day behind my computer. And like, there's so many real world problems happening out there. But I will say, I think for me, like on days like today where I'm working from home, I'm in my home office. Like I end it, and I have this hard time lately detaching from work. I'm so connected.
You are.
Send one more email, do one more thing, and I'll work up to, and then a lot of times past the buzzer, you know. So I'll be like, all right, like hard stop at 5:15, but then I get there and I'm like, a few more, and then so like I don't ever plan the space to have that little bit of work detox or whatever it is. And I think that's maybe important, is like the planning of, you know, like the intentionality of your friend that you're talking about who would drive a number of laps around the neighborhood, or, you know, planning for even just 5 minutes of a detox. If you don't have a work drive, I joke sometimes I miss, like I as you know, we still go to the office.
Yeah.
And I'm there probably twice a week for client meetings, but sometimes I miss the drive home, because the drive home was my time to kind of settle.
Yeah, like you listen to a podcast, you listen to the radio. I mean, you usually, though, to be honest, you know, sometimes when I would see you driving home, like if I'm walking outside or something and I'd see you and I'd wave, you know, you'd point to your headphones and you were like on a call. So, I mean, I think sometimes you even worked when you were driving home. But yeah, that is, you know what I miss, honestly? Well, not anymore these days, but back in the old days when I lived in New York City, I loved commuting on the subway because I didn't have to do any, well, now you get, you know, stabbed, but back then I didn't have to do anything. Like I would just like sit there and just kind of, I listen. Do you know what do you know what a
the answer is already probably no.
No,
but
I want to know what you remember, like the old days, like people had Walkmans. Do you know?
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
So I had Walkman. I had a cassette tape in there, and I would just like listen to music and just sit on the subway and just kind of, you know, tune out, you know, whatever.
What was playing in Rich's cassette tape in 1984?
It was Rat. I listened to Rat.
No Tony Robbins?
Guns N' Roses.
Tony Robbins motivational?
I did listen to, I had my Tony Robbins cassettes, but that was later. I couldn't afford that when I lived in New York, but I would say my three that I listened to the most was Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, Van Halen, Women and Children First, and Rat, Out of the Cellar. Those were the three cassettes that I listened to the most. Anyway, but that detox time you could do, or somebody that works, because a lot of people work from home, or a lot of people are retired, you could get up, walk outside, and just do, you know, I know exactly from your house around the block back is just at a half a mile. So that little amount of time would be at least 10 minutes, which is exactly the amount of sun you need to create vitamin D. And that would just give you a reset. But you just reminded me of the last one, or the next to last one, as we wrap up. Grace. I'm going to tell you from the outside looking in that you are way too hard on yourself as a dad. You are an outstanding dad. Your kids and your wife adore you. Literally the other day, I see you driving and I'm like, oh, where are you going? You're at your kid's softball game, and then you're at Disney, and you are amazing, and your kids love you. I saw you trick-or-treating with them a couple of weeks ago. So that's everybody's got to let go of the freaking perfection thing. You know, there's nobody with a perfect marriage and with perfect kids and perfect balance and perfect, it's all crap. So just give yourself grace and just start from there. Just start from the fact that you already know you're not going to be perfect, and you already know you're going to have bad days and good days. So just speak truth to it. Hey kids, I've done it. Say, hey guys, I'm sorry if I came in kind of like an ogre. Daddy had a tough day, and I love you guys. And just like you have sometimes like a bad day at school and I give you a hug, sometimes I have a bad day. So can you give me a hug? That not only will you be teaching your kids honesty and communication, but you're giving your kids the opportunity to show you compassion and love, which feeds their heart and feeds them. And then you get that love, that embrace from your kids, which, I mean, what's better than a hug from somebody that you love, right? So that leads me to that. Give yourself grace. And then last but not least is just, gratitude. Man, I know we talk about it all the time, but I can tell you all right now, and I've said it 100 times and I don't care, I'll say it on every podcast. When we're done with this podcast, go Google gratitude and mental health, gratitude and depression, gratitude and burnout, gratitude and happy relationships. It shows up everywhere. It's something that they've been talking about forever, and it's now being proven by science, which, thank you science for finally catching up, but be grateful. I'm Catholic. I went to confession 2 weeks in a row, not because I've messed up really bad, just so you know, but I just wanted to do it. And it's like a cool, even if you don't believe in that, it's just a really cool thing to say to somebody, like, I have been judgmental and I have been not nice and I said this under my breath and I took a towel from the Holiday Inn Express in Des Moines. I did. It was an accident, sort of. It's a long story. But I had my steamer and I wrapped it in a towel to dry it. And then when I put it in my suitcase, I knew that it was in there. And then I was like, oh, I'll take it out. And then I forgot. So technically I stole a towel and I'm very sorry about that. I'll, you know what? I will mail it back. But you know, it's just.
I hope the Holiday Inn.
No, I totally made that up. By the way,
this up. I hope they
I
pick this
totally
up.
listen. Just so you know, I'm smart enough. I have not been in Des Moines, and I haven't been at a Holiday Inn Express. That's all a lie. So I'm just totally covering my crimes. I'm just using it as a symbolic example. But no, seriously, you know, just you know, doing that and just being honest and going and like kind of confessing that, getting that off my chest, just speaking it out loud, I walked out feeling lighter. So just say it. I'm in a bad mood, or I had a tough day, or I'm kind of grumpy today and I need a hug. Men never do that. Yeah. I don't know that women do that much. Kids sometimes do it, but I think that's another thing. Be grateful, be honest, and just give people the gift of being able to be compassionate to you. It's a gift. It's a gift to say to somebody, I need to talk. Because if you said to me, hey, Rich, I need to talk, that would be a huge compliment to me, because I'd be like, wow, my friend needs me. I'm there. So that's what I want to say. Don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace. Be a little more grateful. Communicate. Give yourself a little bit of a pause, you know, before you go back into the house if you've had a tough day. I think if you do some of those things, honestly, I think you'll find yourself developing not only some happiness habits, but you'll be setting a great example for the people around you.
Well, thanks for the therapy session. I think I needed it. I know the listeners did, but I needed it. I mean, for me, it's I know that there's no such thing as balance, and I find happiness in my. This is so dumb, but I do find happiness in my productivity. Like I find joy in getting up at 4 a.m. and working out like I did today, and like just I find joy in that. But eventually, enough of that, you start to get burned out doing that, and then for me, I kind of. I swing the pendulum in the other direction, and I'm like, oh, I miss my kids. And like, so a lot of what you said was very much directed towards me of like, now you're just being too much of a perfectionist here. So I'm going to overcorrect and be more, go ahead.
But also I want to just interject. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but don't beat yourself up for the part about work. There's a quote from Khalil Gibran that says, if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work. And so the fact that you love what you do, is a blessing, because you're teaching your children a valuable lesson. You're providing for your family with abundance and prosperity because you're working from a place of love. And your clients, I can just say being one, your clients benefit from the love that your team has, all of them, and knowing that their money, their future, their retirement, their kids' retirement, their kids' future, all those things are in the hands of somebody and a team, you, Matt, all of your team, that are working with love and not with distaste. So compliment yourself for that, and then just be graceful. But I'm not going to be, you know, like that look on Matt's face when he wanted to talk about work-life balance, and I go, there's no such thing, and he's like, what? But grace. Give yourself that grace, and understand that I look at you as a friend, and I'm like, man, he gives his all everywhere he is. He is striving to be his best self. And instead of beating the crap out of yourself for not achieving that, be so proud of yourself that you're even thinking that way. If you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work and you work with love. So you know what, man? All of you guys that are doing that, give yourself a pat on the back. It's not a participation trophy, but give yourself a pat on the back, man. You're showing up. Showing up's half the battle. Show up to the gym when you don't want to. And even if you do a crappy workout, you just did more than 95% of the world. Show up to work and give somebody a compliment or help somebody or finish something. And you probably did more than a lot of people who have jobs that show up and they walk around the office drinking coffee and pretending like they're doing stuff while they're shopping on Amazon. So give yourself some grace, man.
Amen to that. Matt always says, this is just a joke that him and I talk about a lot, but like you said, showing up's half the battle. And I think people like feel like that quote's overused, but I love it because it really is true. It's like, so the thing that Matt and I talk about is as long as you show up on time, run a comb through your hair, and be prepared to listen. So that you can engage in a dialogue with somebody, like that goes miles further than what most people do.
Well, I agree. And you know why sometimes expressions are overused? Because they're useful. Nobody overuses an expression that doesn't matter and doesn't work because they would have faded into obscurity. So that's why people say things a lot. And we go, oh, that's overused. Yeah, because it's useful. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
True.
Like if you say, kindness is free. Oh, that's an overused. Yeah, because it's useful. Nobody says some dumb, stupid thing that some like idiot said 1,000 years ago because we forgot about it. So,
well said. No, that's true, man. Well, on that note, I'm gonna go hug my dog Chipper.
You should.
I'm gonna pet him and lay with him for a minute. He's 15, and he just tore his CCL, so he's limping around the house, but he's doing good. So I'm gonna go give him some love. But Rich, you wanna take us home?
Absolutely. Listen, one of the things that as we're especially moving towards Thanksgiving, it could be a difficult time. The Christmas season, the holiday season for everybody can become so stressful. More than the Christmas presents is your presence. And, being present, being in the moment, embracing what is, and also giving yourself grace and loving the people around you, being a little bit more forgiving, and just being the person that your dog thinks you are, or if you're weird, your cat thinks you are. But, give yourself that little bit of grace. And when you talk about Thanksgiving, it's really about giving thanks. And so we're thankful.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I love finding when we do episodes like this, I love finding the title of the episode through conversation. And I think the title of the episode is going to be the person your dog thinks you are. I feel like that's a good title.
I mean, anyway. Hey, if you want to do that, it's either that or you could be like, go Beyonce, go away, one or the other. I don't know which one. We don't want the Queen Bee team to come after us. They don't like us. I'm just kidding. I don't hate Beyonce. I don't hate anybody. But listen, much peace to you guys. And on behalf of all of us at the Above Board Podcast, we are grateful for you. And if we don't connect with you before Thanksgiving, please enjoy it. Have as much turkey as you want because it's super healthy for you and it's a lean protein. And remember that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up, run a comb through your hair, or in my case, a razor. Maybe I'd add brush your teeth and just do the best you can. And you know what? It's okay to ask people for a hug unless they're strangers, because then that could be weird.